Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie and welcome back to another tutorial. Guys, I know that this pitching tutorial has been long overdue, but it's coming out now, so I hope you guys enjoy it and everything. But today what we're going to be talking about, I decided to split the pitching tutorial into two separate parts. The first part is going to be more focused on mechanically how to use analog pitching, the mechanics behind it, exactly what everything means, and you know, how to really hit your spots and how to be, you know, relatively consistent while using analog pitching. And then the next video is going to be more the psychological side of pitching and how to tunnel pitches and how to sequence and things like that, so that you can be the best that you can be. And I plan on that video coming out tomorrow. But anyways, with that being said, leave a like on the video. I'm going to say that early in the video because it seems like I get more likes when I say it earlier in the video. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, attempt number 2 at recording this after I was a big dumb idiot. But anyways, okay, the first thing that people always ask me whenever I start talking about analog pitching is, why do you want to use analog pitching instead of meter or instead of pulse or classic interface or whatever? And the main reason is that your goal in MLB The Show, if you want to be a great player, is to eliminate as much randomness as possible and to put as many things as possible under your control. Obviously, you can't eliminate all of the randomness because it's a baseball simulation, but you can do a pretty good job of getting you know, a relative amount of control on the outcomes, especially when it comes to pitching. And that is what analog pitching allows you to do. As you can see right here as I'm running through my interface, whenever I miss with something, it's very obvious which way I missed, and the ball tends to go that way. And when I hit my spot, the ball tends to go almost exactly where I want it to, within a very, very small window of where I end up aiming the pitch. And you don't get that with meter or with you know, pulse pitching. Usually with those interfaces, the places the ball will end up are a lot more random. So when you're using meter and you miss your interface or something like that, let's say that you're aiming right here. If you miss with pure analog, I missed just a tad bit inside right there, and you can see the location was still pretty close to where I wanted it. But if you aimed right there with meter, then the ball would end up like way over here or something. If you miss, not specifically way over there, but it would be kind of random where the ball would end up. Whereas if you miss with meter, I'm going to try to pitch this really high right here. See, it goes way up high. You know exactly the reason why the pitch ended up where it is, and it's because you screwed up, and it's not because you know, just some random number generator decided that the ball was going to go here. So yeah, that's the main reason. Plus, another reason is, yeah, analog pitching is a lot more difficult, but once you get used to it, once you get good at it, you just have a lot more control. And when you have more control over where you can put your pitches, you tend to be a lot better, and ERAs start to go way, way down. Okay, and the second thing that people ask me is, how does analog pitching work? It seems a little complicated at first, but it's really not. It's quite simple. First off, you have two axes. You have the vertical axis and the horizontal axis, or the y-axis and the x-axis. And basically what's happening is that the vertical axis dictates how high or low the ball is going to go. So if I'm aiming right here, I want to hit that yellow line on the vertical axis right there. I want to hit that yellow line perfectly. I was a little bit below it right there, so the pitch was a little bit lower than where I was aiming. And then on the horizontal axis, you can see as I move the pitch around the strike zone horizontally, the target on the horizontal axis moves left and right in a corresponding manner. So your goal is to hit the target on the vertical axis, and then when you push up with the right analog stick, you will try to hit the target on the horizontal axis as well. And if you do both of those things perfectly, then the ball should go basically exactly where you were wanting it to go in the first place. So mechanically, there are two parts to starting a pitch with analog pitching, and that is the pullback and the push up with the right analog stick. So initially you want to, you want to pick your pitch. Let's just say I'm going to throw a fastball right here. So I'll pick a fastball and then I'll pick the spot that I want to throw it at. So let's say I want to throw it up and away. I will pull back on the right analog stick until it hits that yellow line, and then I will push up, trying to push the analog stick in the direction of where I was aiming it. And there are a few things that can help you be a little bit more accurate. Generally, it's much more difficult to hit your target on the horizontal axis than it is on the vertical axis, because the vertical axis is really just about timing, and the horizontal axis is you being very precise. So yeah. So I'm wanting to throw up and away. So on the pullback, since I'm wanting to throw to the left side of the plate right here, from the catcher's perspective, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back down and to the right on the analog stick. So if I push down and to the right, whenever I push up, it's going to kind of force my thumb to go up and to the left. And that kind of helps you guide the ball. So whichever direction you're wanting to throw the ball on the pullback, you're going to want to pull back down into the opposite direction. So that whenever you push up, you're going to be pushing in the opposite direction of where you pulled down, and it'll be kind of a straight line that cuts across the circumference of the analog stick, if you get what I'm saying. So right here, I pull down and to the right, I push up and to the left, and bam, a perfect pitch. Now, there is another aspect to analog pitching that a lot of people just kind of ignore because it really isn't that big of a deal. But that is the amount of effort that you want to put into a pitch. Generally, this is the only area where meter pitching tends to have an advantage over analog, because it is a little bit more difficult to dictate just how hard you want to throw a pitch or how much break you want to put on a curveball or something like that. But generally, it's just how fast and with how much effort you push up on the analog stick after you've hit your vertical interface. So if I want to push up and I don't want to have a lot of effort, maybe I want to be a little bit more precise with my pitch so I don't throw it as hard, you're just going to kind of push up gently, and see, I got a nice yellow interface. That means that I was just trying to hit my spot. I wasn't trying to throw with that much effort. But if you want to throw one really hard, then you just pull back and push up with a little more force. You can see that was a little bit more of an orange color. I didn't push hard enough to get red, but I did get the orange coloring. So look, right here, let's try to get red. No, that's still a little orange. Like I said, it can be kind of finicky and a little bit more difficult to get. That was pretty red right there. But there are some drawbacks to throwing really hard. One is that you are going to lose more stamina more quickly if you're throwing all your pitches at max effort every time. And two, it can be a little bit more difficult to control your pitches whenever you're putting that much effort into them. So yeah, it's really kind of a balancing act between, having your pitcher throw effective pitches while still wanting to hit your spots and have your pitcher go later on into the games. So yeah, on the push up, whenever you're pushing the right analog stick up, know that you can control that right there. That was a really good pitch. You can control the amount of effort that you want to put in, but only to a certain degree. There is a tiny bit of randomness involved in that. Okay, another major thing is you really need to practice analog pitching. Practice. Do what I'm doing right here. Go into practice mode and really practice throwing to both sides of the plate versus lefties and righties. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's this way for everybody else, but for me, I tend to be able to throw inside more accurately than I can throw outside, regardless of the handedness of the hitter. You would think if I had an easier time against a righty throwing to this side of the plate, it's like if a lefty's up there, what's the difference? Shouldn't I be able to throw outside to a lefty just as easily? But that really isn't the case. For whatever reason, I find it a lot easier to throw to the inside corner than I do the outside corner, regardless of the handedness of the hitter. I don't know why. It's just a lot more difficult for me to be accurate when throwing to this side of the plate. I don't know if there's something in the design or if it's just a mental thing with me. I don't really know what's going on, but yeah, it's pretty difficult to do. And so that's why it's important to come in and practice and, practice throwing to both sides of the plate, throw inside to righties, throw outside to righties, because different hitters in Diamond Dynasty, different opponents will struggle against different things, and some guys will really struggle with fastballs on the inside corner. Some guys will really struggle with changeups or fastballs on the outside corner. So you're going to have to adapt to different situations, and it'd be best if you were prepared for all of them. Another thing that's very important is to know how walk per nine and control affect the interface, how it affects how accurate you are with your pitches. And generally, someone with a really high walk per nine, like the Brett Saberhagen that I'm using here, it's a lot easier to hit your spots because the interface is just a little bit tighter. That's the best way I can describe it, is that it's tighter than someone that has a really low walk per nine, like Nolan Ryan or someone like that. So, a guy with low walk per nine, you might be aiming up here, and you try to hit that spot, but you miss by just a little bit, and it's going to go way off like that. You're not going to have as big of a margin of error as you do with a guy like Saberhagen. And that can be really important this year because hitting your spots is so important. And if you leave like a hanging curveball or a fastball right down the middle or something like that, usually it's going to get hit pretty hard. And so walk per nine, in the past I would have said that walk per nine really isn't that big of a deal. You can get around it, but it seems like this year they've made it more important than ever. So pay attention to that whenever constructing your lineup. And sometimes maybe a guy's stuff is just so good that you don't really worry about it. That Nolan Ryan is kind of a good example. But generally, you're going to want to pay attention to that because it can be very difficult if you don't know what you're doing with those guys. Okay, and then the final tip, and this is probably the most important tip I can give you. I think I said something else was, but I think this is. And that's just stay focused. I know that that's a very generic tip, and it's probably self-explanatory, but it's super important. If you're doing something else while you're playing a game, this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult for me to play and stream at the same time, and why I generally don't play as well whenever I stream. It's because I have a lot of things going on, right? And I'm trying to juggle the chat, and I'm trying to juggle whatever's going on in my room and whatever's going on in the game at the same time, and I'm not focused. I'm not focused on hitting my spots, on sequencing my pitches well, and all that good stuff. So don't be lazy on every single pitch. Really focus on pulling back into the right if you're trying to pitch to the left or vice versa. Focus on sequencing well. Focus on all the stuff that you need to do to make sure that your opponent, isn't going to hit a home run or get a base hit or whatever. And because if you do, you're going to end up making a lot of mistakes, and your opponent is going to punish you for them. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you some. The next video on pitching will be a little bit more advanced. I'm going to talk about pitch sequencing and tunneling pitches and all that good stuff, so that you can get better at the psychological part of pitching. And I think it's going to be a little bit better than this video, at least for someone who's a little bit more advanced in the game. So be on the lookout for that. That should be coming out tomorrow. And yeah, like I said, leave a like. If you haven't subbed, do that, please. And yeah, I love you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. But until then, peace.